Farmer Julian Temperley, who lost all of his cattle in the flooding, spoke to me just before we came on air tonight. And he said he was delighted that Mr Cameron was finally taking action.
Absolutely brilliant. As far as I can see, he's overruled the EA, Environment Agency, and effectively overruled his own Secretary of State. It's a victory for common sense. It's a victory for England. It's a victory for Somerset. I think we are enormously relieved.
The farmer Julian Temperley speaking to me a short time ago. Now, should there be a ban on people smoking in cars when their children are travelling with them? Today, MPs are debating the issue in the House of Lords, or Peers, I should say. The Labour Party wants a ban, and Downing Street says the Prime Minister is ready to listen to the arguments. But critics say there is no need for any more legislation. Joining me now is Julia Manning from 2020 Health and Ian Dunt, editor of politics.co.uk. Thanks very much for joining me tonight, guys. Julia, why are you supporting a ban?
We think that this is really important. It is about child protection. It's about doing the right thing for children.
Why is it the right thing?
Because we shouldn't be exposing children to high levels of smoke on a regular basis. 500,000 children are travelling in cars on a regular basis where they're surrounded by smoke. And
you know that for a fact, do you?
Those are the figures that the British Lung Foundation have come up with. So we think this is really important because everyone knows you'd have to have been living on a desert island for the past 60 years not to know that smoke, and including secondhand smoke, is bad for you. Even worse for children because their lungs aren't fully developed, they're more sensitive. So the fact that people are still smoking in cars tells us that they haven't made the right choice about not smoking when children are around. So we need to bring in legislation. Of course, we don't want legislation, but we're having to respond to people not taking responsible decisions around children.
Let's bring Ian in. I mean, health issues are clear, aren't they, from Julia? What's wrong with a ban?
Yeah, I don't question the health issues at all. If you're smoking in the car with your child, that is not good parenting, and it's not to be encouraged.
You should support a ban, then, surely.
Well, there is a distinction between behaviour that we're not in favour of and behaviour that we think should be made illegal. Okay, so let's look at the kind of precedent, the moral precedent that we set. If you invite the state onto your private property, into your car, your private property, just the same as your home, why shouldn't the state therefore be able to say, well, actually, you're giving your children an unhealthy diet, so we're going to intervene with that and we're going to pass a law against that? Or you're allowing your children to have a sedentary lifestyle, to not do enough sport. That's unhealthy for children as well. If we start opening the doors of the state on this issue, then we open it for all sorts of things that we might be less comfortable with.
Do you really think that would happen? I mean, realistically, do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that the public health hysteria in this country has come to the point where we no longer respect people's autonomy, their sense that they can make their own decisions about their lives. We want the government to intervene in any number of issues. It's a profoundly dangerous trend in British politics.
OK, we've got so many messages from our viewers. I want to get to them now. Jason Farr via Facebook has made a good comment. Julia, you could respond to this. He says, how's it going to be enforced? Police are already overstretched. This adds to their workload. And that's a very good point. Practically, how are you going to enforce this?
It is difficult to enforce. It's difficult to enforce people speaking on their mobiles in cars and people wearing seatbelts. We've passed laws on those because, again, people weren't taking responsibility, for their behaviours.
Do you expect the police to stop people if they see people smoking in cars with children in the back?
Yes, as they do already when they see people on their mobiles.
Haven't they got enough to do already?
Of course they have. Of course they have. And this, in an ideal world, we wouldn't be wanting to see this happen. But this isn't an ideal world. We've got far too many adults making very selfish decisions about smoking around children. And, of course, we don't want this to happen. We don't want yet another law. But we're in a position where not enough people are making good choices about healthy behaviours around children.
And I have to say, half of the messages we've got from our viewers support a ban. And Carol Pearce via Facebook goes on to say, this is really good. Children do not have a choice and someone has to look out for them. Secondary smoke is also dangerous, as is driving with only one hand. So, the public support this, don't they?
Broadly speaking, the public do support it, but I don't think that that's what makes something a good idea. It's not about...
It's odd that you say it's not a good idea, even though you admit or you acknowledge that it does harm children. So why is it not a good idea to ban smoking?
As I say, for instance, let's say that we pass a law against pregnant women eating fried breakfasts, because that causes an awful lot of damage to the child that's inside the woman. I mean, if we want to go down this road...
You're being a bit absurd,
No, you need to look at the evidence base for smoking.
What's
the evidence base for the harm of smoking is way beyond anything else in terms of our behaviours around eating or drinking or whatever else.
Yeah,
so you can't draw an analogy like that.
To say that because it's harmful to the health of children, there's a right for the state to intervene. Now, there are other things which are also harmful to the health of children, maybe to greater or lesser extents, where we don't think it's right for the state to intervene. It should be the same case here.
View in. This is from Ashley Downs. Again, this one for you, Julia. You shouldn't have to ban it. You'd hope that parents would have enough between the ears to know that smoking with a child in a car is selfish and immoral. Isn't education a better way of doing it rather than more legislation?
Well, we all know that smoking is bad for you. Secondhand smoke is bad for you. It's
we?
not a lack of understanding. We really do. No one could ever say, no, I didn't know that smoking was bad for me or my kids. So we've had education. It hasn't worked. We now need to bring in legislation.
In a word, will it become law? What do you think, Ian?
Almost certainly.
I hope so.
OK, there you go. Thank you very much for joining
Thank you.
us tonight. Lots more still to come in the programme. Later on, we'll be discussing plans by Barclays to have fewer traditional high street branches. We'll also be asking whether its rivals are likely to follow suit. But first, we're going to get some more of today's news for you now. Here's Alex.
Thanks, Emma.